Hey, it's Wes. It's time to look at yet another lens. This is the Meike 50 1.8 full-frame lens for Sony E-mount. As you can see, this lens is a little bit large. We're going to go in-depth, lots of image samples, lots of fun, starting with the build quality. First thing you'll notice about this lens is this lens hood is very stiff. Bam. Really cranks on there, which honestly, I would rather have a stiff one than one that falls off when I'm walking around, so that's totally fine. Nice normal lens cap. If we come around to the back here, we have the always annoying Meike back cap, which only goes on in one particular third of the rotation, unlike a Sony back cap, which at any third will go on. Drives me crazy all the time. If we feel the lens, very plasticky, not super lightweight. There's a lot of glass in here. There's this weird little plasticky flange around the front here. Very large, but all plastic focus wheel. We have a very generic autofocus manual focus switch. But surprisingly enough, coming around to the back, we have a rubber gasket. We have our USB-C port for firmware updates. So we have some ups and downs here. The lens hood itself is a little bit squishy, but again, I appreciate how well it snaps onto the lens. So overall, this lens is going to get a build quality of 7.5 out of 10. Honestly, not bad. Not bad at all. Handling and usability. I do appreciate the inclusion of an AF/MF switch. There are no custom function buttons. I rarely use those myself, but lots of people do like those. No aperture ring. Nice, big focus wheel, which is great to have because you do have the switch on there. You have the USB-C port for very easy firmware updates. This lens is big. Let's talk about that for a second. Here is the Sony 55 1.8. Here is the Viltrox 55 1.8. It's big, but still smaller. Here is the Meike 50 1.2. Albeit this is a manual focus lens. It is approximately the same size. I'm not quite sure why that lens is so big. I feel like by this point, they could have just copied the Sonar design. Maybe they're not allowed to, I don't know. Although it's big, it's not super heavy, just a little unexpected there. So for handling and usability, for the most part, it's totally fine, works great, very intuitive. It's a lens. It's 8.5 out of 10. Image quality. Wide open, it's a little bit soft. It is very similar in sharpness to the Meike 85 1.8 autofocus lens. However, this has significantly better color rendition. That one had some weird colors. It was great for dreamy stuff, not so great for everything else. Stopping down, much more usable, gets sharper. It's never an incredibly sharp lens though. Flare resistance is good, but not great. Significantly better again than the 85 1.8. Has a decent amount of chromatic aberration, but still less than the 85. Overall, I'm going to give this an image quality of 7 out of 10. It's fine. I wouldn't really want to use this for professional work, but most people aren't going to because of that price. Image character. Meike makes my favorite 50mm lens. That's right, this manual focus lens, I love the character. It is dreamy and soft, and the flares are just gorgeous and smooth. You may not know this, but I use this for almost all of my B-roll on YouTube, which lots of people love the B-roll that I make on YouTube. If I need to get closer, I just put a little extension tube on there so I can get in a little bit tighter. I have had customers print billboards with photos that I've taken with this lens. You don't need a G-Master to get on a billboard. And so, I had high hopes for this one. We're not quite there. A lot of blooming around bright objects, which some people might like, some people might not. Fairly smooth, if unremarkable bokeh. It can get a tiny bit nervous, but most of the time it does not. It's just totally unremarkable, which for a lot of work is actually what you want, so I can't complain too much about that. The biggest problem for me is that the bokeh turns into like a D shape pretty close to the center. It's not like way out there. It's better to have a cat's eye or a football because then you get like a little bit of a swirl, but it's still smooth. It pops the subject. The flares are more or less unremarkable, just kind of washy. The sun stars are actually quite nice. They're not amazing, but they are good when you stop it down. So for image character, I'm going to give this a 7.5 out of 10. For reference, the old 51.2, I gave this a 9.5, one of my highest scores for character. Focus performance. This, thankfully, focuses significantly better than the 85 1.8, which for me was just a nightmare to focus with. Other people have told me they don't have that much of an issue, but I don't know. I was trying to use it in faster paced situations. I try to use it in low light and good light and backlight and everything to see where we land, and in that one I just had to use in manual focus a lot of the time. This one, perfectly usable autofocus. It's not going to blow your socks off, but it's going to work. The focusing goes pretty far out toward the edge of the frame, which is good. Stopped down, it can be a lot less reliable, so it depends on how you use this. Totally fine. It is a 7 out of 10. It makes a little bit of noise when it's focusing, so be aware of that if you want to use it for video. Value. This is a 50mm 1.8 full frame autofocus lens for $160. This Viltrox is $360. Go away, Viltrox. We're not in the same category at all. This Sony, $1,000. That's wild in this day and age. What can we really compare this to? Well, there is a 7 Artisans 50, fairly new, 1.8 lens that is $230, also suspiciously large and much heavier, more of a metal design. There's the Sony Nifty 50 for $250. Rokinon has their 45 1.8, very nice lens for $300. There is the Yongnuo 50 full frame for $320. Surprised it costs that much from Yongnuo. Yeah, that's the whole low end. Everything else is going to be wildly more expensive. We obviously don't need to go much further here. This is the value leader of the entire 50mm full frame segment for E-mount, which is saying something because there are a lot of lens options there. I only covered a few. This is obviously a 10 out of 10 for value. They really dug deep, and thankfully, unlike the 85, this is a generally usable lens all around. I probably wouldn't use it for professional work because it's just not quite there, but for anyone else, hobbyist or amateur or whatever, this is fine. It's totally fine, and it's $160. That gives us a total score of 76.7%. It comes in around the middle of the list. For a lens that significantly undercuts the competition, that is a good score. You're getting a perfectly fine lens for just the bottom amount of money, and thank you, Mikey, because there are a lot of people who need this lens. Thank goodness we no longer live in the world where this is the only 50mm lens for Sony E-mount, and it's $1,000. Nope, we have options, we have cheap ones, we have middle ones, we have everything, and Mikey gives us a perfectly viable option. If you have any questions about this lens, let me know down in the comments below. If you want to pick one up, there's going to be a link down in the description to help support this channel and feed my fat cats. But until next time, that's not the hood for this one. Cap. Lens hood. Too many lenses out here. Go take some photos.